Today's headline is Spearing the Shovel Cat. A Missourian tells the fishing experience of his boyhood. The subheadline says, the looks and behavior of the strange Mississippi River fish he hunted, carried overboard and down by one. It says, no queer fish swims, exclaimed the tall Missourian who was talking fish and fishing in the office of one of the downtown hotels the other evening. And no fish that will give a more furious fun for an hour or so than our homely old shovel cat of the West. A number of well-known anglers had gathered in a cozy corner and were listening to the big man's stories, told between vigorous puffs of his corncob pipe. In all the creeks and branches tributary to the Mississippi and Missouri, one may catch this awkward, heavy fish, and if one be out only for cats alone, he will give rare sport. But to the crappie fisherman, he is a great nuisance, stealing the bait as fast as it can be put on the hook, and seldom allowing himself to be hooked. Despite his clumsy shape, he's agile to a remarkable degree. From a side view, the fish is not ungraceful, its long broad nose showing only an edge, and appearing as slender as the swordfish's weapon. His tail is sharply forked, and his fins large and of rakish cut. He often attains the length of 6 feet, and weighs as much as 50 pounds. A stranger, whose dugout is drifted into shoal water or up into one of the shallow bayous where he is angling for crappie, will suddenly be startled by a loud splash hard by, and if he is quick enough, he may turn and catch a glimpse of a shovel cat at work. The great fish will throw its entire body out of the water, double over in midair, and descend head foremost like a professional diver. He is feeding, and as he lives mostly upon the tiny animals and creeping things hidden in the soft muddy bottom, this leap is necessary to give him impetus enough to make the deep plunge. He drives his wide shovel far into the mud, and turning up a long furrow, catches whatever food is washed out in the process. Our people do not care to eat these cats, for the flesh is coarse and flavored with a taste of black mud, but it's sold in the large towns or cities under various disguises, with its telltale head and tail cut off to prevent recognition. Only a few knowing folk, black folks for the most part, understand how to cook shovel cats so as to make a palatable dish. They dig a hole in the ground, line it with flat stones, and into this tightly pack the slices of fish wrapped in wet corn leaves and a lot of sweet potatoes. They roof over this oven with one large stone, and on top build a fire. The fish and potatoes are left to bake slowly for an hour or two, and when the smoking mass is removed, the strong muddy taste seems to have in some way been baked out, and the white flesh is delicious. On a light rod, one of the big fellows will give a lively tussle, but it requires the patience of a Job and the enthusiasm of an Ike Walton to sit all afternoon and broil under a hot Mississippi sun in the dreary hope of hooking a cat. The fish are too fickle and biting to furnish reliable sport in that way, and the market fishermen generally resort to nets to ensure a catch. But the real hair-raising, line-stretching, bubble-tossing fun is spearing. We used to always choose a gray day, when the sky was overcast and no breeze blowing to ruffle the surface of the water. 2 of us would set out for a branch about 2 hours before sunset, armed with a short homemade harpoon, consisting of a steel-barbed head loosely set in a hickory shaft. To a ring in the lance head was made fast about 100 feet of heavy line. Arriving at the bank of the creek, we would cut off a cottonwood limb to lash to the end of our line, to act as a float if we had to let the whole business go overboard. Then one would paddle the dugout, while the other stood in the bow watching for the shovelers. Of course we had to hunt only in the shallows, not only because the fish were more plentiful there, but because the spear was uncertain in more than 4 or 5 feet of water. When we had located our victim, who would be turning splashing somersaults far ahead, the man at the paddles would make for the spot where the shoveler last went down. The spearman, peering ahead, could dimly make out the huge fellow at his mud-plowing toil, and waiting till he was fairly over his prey, would send the steel whirling. What a foam of yellow mud then! And if he had struck a big one, how our leaky old dugout would roll and jump as we were dragged up the creek by the mad shoveler. The flurry is short, however, for the steel soon exhausts the energy and courage of the fish. But the first few moments of excitement are wild. Many and many a time our dugout upset, and we would swim and wade for the water and mud to the shore, dragging our shipwrecked craft and our yet unconquered captive behind us. Once I remember leaving school with my cousin Jed at noontime recess, and hooking off to the creek for shovelers. We would both be well flogged if it were found out, but that danger only added another charm. We had hidden our spear under a willow root the day before, and in a few moments we had it and were afloat on a raft of old boards. We were only small shavers, Jed 10 and I 12 years old, and could pull our vessel only very slowly. For a long time we saw no game. Jed remarked uneasily that we were drawing near our house, which then stood on the bank of the creek about a mile above where we had started. We had both taken off our trousers, for fear that the swash of the river would wet them, and thus betray us at supper time, and stood with our shirts flapping in the breeze, two eager sportsmen if such ever lived. Just as I sighted the house around the bend through the young cottonwoods, and the dreaded form of my mother hanging out clothes on the line, Jed gave a long shh, and bending forward, sent his spear flying with all his might. An angry splash answered, and I was terrified to see Jed's blue shirt and white legs tumble headlong from the raft. He had struck a monster and was being towed downstream at a lively rate. We could both swim like ducks, and I, like a flash, dove after him. After being yanked along for 200 yards or more, we struck a shoal sandbar, where we got a foothold. Just as we had begun to gain a bit and were hauling the giant cat landward, we heard a yell from the shore, and were both petrified to see Mother standing there with a switch. At every plunge of the shoveler, she gave another shout, and it was the greatest relief my heart ever knew, when as we came near, she shook her fist and screamed, "If you two young'uns let that there shovel-nose get away, I'll cane you till you both walk bow-legged. I will, I say." And concluded the big man, rising and knocking the ashes out of his corncob, "You can wager we landed that fish, for my mother never broke her word." This story came from the great state of New York, being reported in the Sun of September 9th, 1894. Thank you for joining us today. Beginning next week, on Monday, February 5th, we're going to be going to a new uploading schedule. We'll be uploading on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.